Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. In this video I'm comparing these 2026 Mini LED models by Samsung M80H on the left and M70H on the right, both in 55-inch size. First important thing you need to know is that both TVs are marketed as Mini LED as I said, but neither of these models have full array local dimming backlighting technology. Their backlight technology is a conventional or normal direct LED. You can corroborate this on ratings.com. This influences their brightness levels. Those brightness levels are not super high, are let's say, well, the words for a brightness lover, but for a Samsung lover or Samsung fanboy maybe are enough. And actually, personally, I think that the levels of brightness these TVs have are more than okay, but this is because I am not a brightness lover. Let's say in terms of colors, the results are more than okay. They both have a good color accuracy, a good out-of-the-box color accuracy, but from my point of view, the results on the M80H, no matter the picture mode you choose, are much better. The balance between the contrast, the level of detail, and the colors, not only in the characters but also in the background, are better. Let's say if you watch the M70H alone, you might consider the results are okay. But by comparing them this way side by side, of course the results on the M80H are simply much better. Both TVs have this option for improving the HDR results by enhancing the level of detail and of course the color saturation and the level of contrast. And usually this option comes activated out of the box. And the big difference here is that when you play SDR content, the M80H has this option which gives some HDR features to this content, trying to improve contrast and also the level of detail, while the M70H doesn't include this feature. As for colors, the technology is known as pure spectrum color. Neither of these TVs have quantum dot color technology, keep that in mind, and both have this option of color booster, although in the M80H is called Color Booster Pro. The color saturation capacity on both TVs is more than enough, is sufficient for the vast majority of users. Now, when we talk about the performance when watching sports, for example, soccer, football games, they both have this option, soccer mode settings. Well, on the M80H you will have more features, including one in order to decrease the narrator's voice and also the environment noise if you want to, but from my point of view this is something not so nice as it sounds in theory. But you know, we're talking about Samsung, and well, the most, let's say, relevant aspect is that when you enable this option on both TVs, the color saturation increases. That's the only visual change you will perceive. And if we talk about the motion handling, they both have these picture clarity settings. They both have the option for LED clear motion, although I don't recommend this because it darkens the scene and also creates some flicker effect. So usually by setting this picture clarity feature in auto, it will generate the best results in terms of motion, but are not perfect. You need to keep that in mind. And if we talk about the image upscaling, which is also related when you watch sports, in this case we're watching movies, you need to understand that no current 4K TV will show you 4K results if the content resolution is low. Don't be fooled if sellers promise you the opposite. What about the performance in dark scenes, which I know is very important for several users, but I also know that for some people is not so relevant. Well, I remind you guys that neither of these TVs has full array local dimming backlighting technology. I remind you that their backlighting technology is a conventional or simple direct LED without the local dimming feature. Keep that in mind. Remember that currently brands can sell you a mini LED TV even if it doesn't have the full array local dimming backlighting technology. Remember, this is illegal. For me, it's simply a legal deception. So, the results in this area vary according to each picture mode you choose. But in simple terms, the main difference between these two models is that the level of detail is much better on the M80H. And in terms of black depth, let's say is more or less equal between these two TVs. Speaking of the gaming area, you need to know that the main difference is that the M80H is compatible with the 120Hz in 4K and also 144Hz in 4K, along with variable refresh rate technologies. The M70H, on the other hand, is compatible only up to 1080p with the 120Hz and in 4K only up to 60Hz, also with variable refresh rate technologies. The performance in terms of motion handling on both TVs is pretty good. It's slightly better on the M80H for, the reasons I've mentioned. Nevertheless, according to ratings.com, their response times are not the best, are in fact terrible for being, mini LED TVs with the quotation marks. And well, personally in the M70H I noticed some slight ghosting effect, while on the M80H I didn't notice that effect, but in theory it should have some ghosting, but I'm not a super trained gamer. Maybe a super trained human eye may perceive some slight ghosting effect on the M80H too. But in general terms, the performance of both TVs is at least pretty decent. And other difference in favor of the M80H is that it has this game bar, it has this AI gaming optimizer, which I don't recommend to enable. Instead, I prefer these picture modes this game bar offers, and with every choose, the picture in terms of colors and color temperature will change. This game bar also provides this aiming point, and you can, modify the position of this aiming point in this square, and you also will have this option of minimap zoom, which I know for some users might be relevant. And you will have these other game settings, but I consider this not so relevant, especially here in the game picture expert. I don't recommend enable these options. Then remember, for gaming experience, they both are at least pretty decent, especially the M80H, because remember, it supports 120Hz and also 144Hz in 4K along with variable refresh rate technologies. But if you decide to buy the M70H, which is less expensive, let's say will be decent for this gaming area. For the smart area, you need to know these are the remotes. The M80H remote has the microphone for voice commands, while the M70H remote doesn't include the microphone for voice commands. The operating system of both TVs is One UI Tizen by Samsung. It is not based on Android, hence you cannot install APK files. The App Store belongs to this operating system. It has a wide variety of apps, and the smoothness or fluency of this operating system is slightly better on the M80H. And the M80H has this art feature while the M70H doesn't. And the M80H is compatible with what is known as multi-view, while the M70H doesn't. Now, in order to finish, I first want to mention that the performance of their speaker system is okay. I didn't have the chance of recording a test. I'm sorry about that. I only can talk to you about my experience. I can tell you the performance is practically the same between these two models. The results are crisp or sharp, but they both lack a lot of bass. Let's say a soundbar will be mandatory in most cases. So, if you ask me which one of these models is more recommended, well, of course the M80H is more recommended. It has better color accuracy, better performance in dark scenes, better smoothness of the operating system. It includes the microphone on the remote, and you know, for gaming, all this in theory is much better. But if your budget only allows for the M70H, well, if you're a Samsung lover, let's say it's okay. But of course, there are a lot of models from other brands, real mini LED TVs with full array local dimming for similar prices, which are much better compared to these mini LED TVs, adding the quotation marks. But please guys, let me know what you think about these models. I remind you, you can support my channel by doing some purchases through the links I've put in the description and also in the first comment. Also click the like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching and see you next time.